Project for today is going to be this 2002 Yamaha Kodiak. It's got a bad front wheel bearing and a bad front axle. You can see the boot is torn there. And got a bunch of sand and stuff in there, ground at that joint. So we'll be replacing that. And get it lifted up, and I'll get you in a stand and we'll get started. You can kind of see how bad that front wheel bearing is. I'll pop this tire off. Get a jack stand under it. We'll get that nut off of there. This should have a cotter key through it and just the one washer. It's been doubled up there. The axle nut here is a 24 millimeter. Now we'll have to take the brakes off, and we'll have to take the two ball joints off, and so my camera decided to shut off on its own while I was doing that, so I did take the tie rod off. That's just a cotter key and then a 17 millimeter nut on the bottom, and then you can just use a rubber mallet or something to pound that up out of there. If that doesn't work, you can get a pry bar underneath it and just hit the side here. You don't really want to hit down on the threaded part with a hammer or anything. And then there's a bolt that goes through this lower ball joint, and then a nut up here for the upper ball joint. And then we'll pull this hub off of here, and then we'll be able to get this knuckle off here. I did take the brake caliper off too. That was just a couple of 12 millimeter bolts that go through like that, and that comes off. This one under here is a 17 millimeter also. We'll see if we can hit down on that to get that ball joint up out of there. That came out. And we have to get this top one. Get a pry bar under here. And I'll just see if I can hit the side of it. That one we might have to put a fork in there to, I'll see if I can get something to hold this down, get that out of our way. I just ran a ratchet strap around the arm and then back down to the other side, and that kind of held it down out of the way. We'll get a fork in here. That was kind of a stubborn one. You gotta kind of be careful with those forks. You can end up tearing this boot. This one looks like it's okay yet. And this should slide off. And the knuckle slid off of the axle. And the axle, you should be able to just pull straight out on it. I'm gonna get this to be a little more sturdy, hopefully. There we go. That popped out of there. It's got a little snap ring that goes around the end is what holds it in, so you just got to get past that. So we'll get our new axle, slide that in there, and then we're going to have to put the bearings and seals in here. So for this one I went with all balls, 6-ball axle. It's from Automatic, but the part number for all balls is the AB6-YA-8-308. I've had good luck with these. They're a heavy duty axle. Some of the cheaper ones you buy aren't the greatest. If you get them on like Amazon or anything, I like to go with more of the name brand stuff. The OEM Yamaha is gonna be about the best, but I don't really want to put that much money into it. These are fairly expensive. I think this was $100 and some bucks just for this one, but it shouldn't give us any trouble as long as the boots don't tear or anything on it. So we'll get that thrown in there, and then we'll get the bearings pressed into the hub. So putting it in is kind of the reverse of taking it out. You just get it lined up so it's straight, and then you just give it a good hit and it'll pop in there. And then you're good on that side. These come with the new nut and washer too. I kind of like that. Then we'll pop these seals out and put our bearing kit in this. So the seals front to back are different, so you kind of got to pay attention. Like that one, we've got this one in our kit. You can see it's kind of a flatter face like that one is. Try to get our seal puller down in there. There we go. Pop that out. You can kind of see a bunch of junk got down in there, water and stuff like that. So I'll pop the one out of the other side. Get down like this, I guess. It can be kind of difficult to get these the seals out of here. There, that one came out. You can kind of see how that one has more of a lip out the edge like that, where this one was flat, so that was my outer seal, and then this one is the inner seal. So one of these bearings has to come out this way, and this one has to come out this way. Then there's a spacer in the middle, so you kind of got to get a punch down in there and keep kind of tapping back and forth to try to get that out of there, which can be difficult if they're stuck in there. This one looks like it has plenty of grease still. There, it come out of there. And you can see there's a spacer in between. This one's a lot easier to get out now because it's open. You can hit down in here. But you can see we lost our seal is what actually ruined the bearing. That seal must have came out, and then it ended up, there's an inner seal on the actual bearing and the outer seal, but that inner one must have got some dirt or something in there and it wore it out of there. And then once water and dirt gets in there, it's pretty much game over from there. So get that, I'm gonna put it in the vise to get that other one out of there. I'm pulling that other one out. Yeah, see, that one just fell right apart. I was trying to get hit on the inside, but there's not much room. You can get the air hammer in here, see if I can get this one out with that. And you can see the The inner seal was laying in there too. Now we'll get that cleaned up. You want to make sure you clean the inside of the housing really good and then press the new bearings in there. So now I got this all cleaned up. I took a wire wheel in there and cleaned up any of the rust that was in there and stuff. And then one trick, if these do go hard, is you can put these bearings in the freezer and it will shrink them. And then you can heat up this part, and then once you go to put it in, it'll slide in there easier. But this one's been done a few times. I think it'll go in there fairly easy. You just got to make sure that you get it straight. And you want to make sure you don't pound on the center here, you pound on the outside edge. So we'll get it, see if we can get it started. Kind of just work back and forth. And I've got a brass punch here. So my GoPro keeps deciding to turn off on its own while I'm recording here, so I used this brass punch and I made sure to get around the edge, and I just tapped it all the way down in. It didn't go too hard. If it's going really hard, you don't really want to be beating on the new bearing too bad. But you can kind of hear the sound change as you're hitting, and then you'll know that you're down all the way. And you can kind of look in there too. If you kind of shine a light and get down in the side, you can tell if you hit that lip that's inside there that it stops at. So then we got to make sure we remember the spacer, put that in there. Otherwise you'll go to put that in afterwards and you can't get it in there with the new bearing on top of it. So then you end up having to try to pound them back out without wrecking them. I'll basically do the same thing with this one. So then we got our seal for the outside. That was the one that was more flat on the front. That one doesn't go in too far. You just want to make sure that it's kind of even around the whole top. If you got one side that's sticking way up or something, it's not good. And then we'll do the one on the back side, and then this one will be good to go. The back one has this little lip sticking out of it that goes out, so you want to make sure that goes towards the axle. Pretty much with any seal, the dished inside, sometimes they'll have a little spring that goes around in there. That always goes to your oil side or the bearing side, the inside, like that. I got that one in there like that. I didn't have a seal driver for this one, so I ended up just being really careful and going around the back and tapping on that with a punch, but I don't really recommend doing that. You more want to get an actual driver for them to make sure they're straighter and stuff. But we'll start getting this put back on the wheeler now. So we'll slide the axle through the new bearings. And we'll get this part lined up with the upper ball joint. I'll put the nut on there. I'll release this ratchet strap down here. So now we got the strap off of there, we can get this ball joint up in the hole here. It sometimes takes a little finagling. Once you can get it started, you can kind of tap upward on it, and then you'll see the little groove that the bolt goes through. And just go until you can get the bolt through. And we'll get that stuff tightened down, and then we'll have to make sure we put our cotter keys through, and then we can get the hub on here. Well, maybe I'll put the tie rod on first, but we can get the hub on and torque that down. It's a good idea to not use the impact to tighten everything down. Even if I do, I usually go through with a ratchet. Make sure that everything's good. A little farther to get to the hole for the cotter key. Another thing you want to make sure you clean up is this edge here where the seal rides. This one you can tell is kind of beat up from having dirt and grime and sand rubbing on it there, but it'll seal good enough still. And then in here you want to make sure there's no dirt or anything left. Slide that on. You kind of got to turn it a little to get it to go through that seal, and it doesn't hurt to put a little bit of grease there too. You can see we're not sucked up quite all the way. So then you want to just kind of turn it by hand until you can feel it kind of seat. Then we'll get the torque for it and torque that down. So I've got it set up here. I put a couple of lug nuts on and then just put a pry bar down in there, and then we're going to torque it. It's 110 foot-pounds is what I found that we're supposed to torque it to. Alright, so we're torqued, and it actually did land pretty close to being on a spot we could put the cotter key through. If it doesn't land there, you can tighten it just a little bit more to get it to line up, which we might end up having to do that. I'll get it torqued a little bit more, and then we'll get that cotter key through there. Should be able to get that all the way through. As long as you don't hit the brake lever while you're actually have the caliper off, you should be fine. Otherwise you might end up having to press that piston back in. We just have the bolt here for the, holds the brake line up here. We should be ready to put the front wheel on. One thing on these Yamahas, if you put the boot on, or the little hubcap, before you put the rim on, that makes it a lot easier. Get that in there. This one should be good to go. Go out and take it for a test drive and make sure everything works, and it'll be done. Seems to be working good. When you turn, it doesn't clunk anymore. Even going straight, you'd hear the binding of that wheel bearing and the axle. So I think this one's good to go. The new axle looks okay in there. Sometimes if they get popped apart or something when you're trying to put them in, or they don't get in there quite right, you'll see that the boot will be all weird, kind of kinked and stuff, and this one's looking good the way it is. And then we don't have any more shake in the wheel. So that's gonna do it for this one. If you like this sort of thing, like the videos and subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you on the next one.